My family forced a 1 millimeter Christmas marriage, but the millionaire had his own plan. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. Snow drifted past the windows like falling ash, muffling the sound of distant church bells as she stood trapped in the center of her family's living room. Outside, the world glowed with Christmas warmth. Inside, the air was frigid enough to crack. 4 pairs of eyes circled hers like wolves, hungry and cold. On the table lay a thick contract stamped with bold letters. Marriage contract. Payment, $100,000. The number made her dizzy. Her mother shoved the pen toward her. Sign it. This is the only chance we have left. Her father didn't bother hiding his impatience. $1 million for a useless girl. You should be grateful someone even wants you. She tried to step back, but her brother blocked the only exit. Her chest tightened. I'm not signing myself away just to fix your mistakes. The door swung open before anyone could answer. A tall man stepped in, dressed in a black winter coat, snow melting on his shoulders. His presence silenced the room instantly. His eyes, cold metallic, swept across her before landing on the contract. He placed a pen on the table with quiet authority. If you sign, you follow my rules. If you don't... His gaze pinned her in place. I can't guarantee you'll survive the night. She spun around to look for her family, ready to beg, only to find the door locked behind them. They were gone. They had abandoned her to this stranger as if she were cargo being delivered. Her breath shook as she faced him again. Who are you? He didn't answer. He simply tapped the contract. Her trembling hand hovered over the document. Every instinct screamed at her to run, yet every exit was sealed. Her heart thudded painfully as she forced the pen between her fingers. She tried to lift it, but her hand shook too hard. He reached out gently but firmly, steadying her wrist. The warmth of his touch startled her. It contrasted violently with the harshness in his voice. This is the only way to keep you alive. Alive. The word echoed ominously. What danger was he talking about? Why did it involve her? Her name trembled onto the signature line. The moment the ink dried, he released her and stood straighter, as if something heavy had just clicked into place. A soft knock sounded at the door. His lawyer entered, nervous and pale, carrying a folder of documents. Everything is ready, sir. Good. The man didn't look at her when he spoke. Prepare the wedding. Tonight. Her knees weakened. Tonight? Why, it's Christmas Eve. His voice lowered. Because they already know where you are. Her blood ran cold. She didn't understand who they were, but the terror in his tone was real. Within minutes, she was ushered into a black car waiting outside. No one spoke. The driver didn't look at her. The wind outside howled against the windows as the city lights blurred past. She pressed her shaking hands to her chest, trying to steady her breath. Her world had collapsed so fast she could barely keep up. The man sat beside her, staring straight ahead, jaw tight. His silence was as suffocating as the darkness of the car. She watched him from the corner of her eye, broad shoulders, tense, posture, expression, unreadable. Finally she whispered, Did my family owe you money, huh? His tone was absolute. Then why did you pay $1 million for me? He turned slowly, his eyes colder than the snow outside. I didn't buy you. Her breath caught. He leaned in slightly, voice dropping to something low, dangerous, and strangely protective. I bought time. She didn't know what that meant, but she felt the weight of it settle deep into her bones. The car turned into a quiet street, lined with old brick buildings. A small courthouse stood at the end, faintly lit with a single string of Christmas lights that looked more sorrowful than festive. The lawyer and 2 unfamiliar witnesses were already waiting on the steps. Her panic spiked. Why are there no guests, no ceremony? He stepped out first, not answering. Only when she hesitated did he glance back at her. Get out. The witnesses looked nothing like legal assistants. Their posture was too stiff, their eyes too sharp. One of them had a small symbol tattooed behind his ear, something that made her stomach twist. She forced her legs to move, heart pounding as they led her inside. Under the dull courthouse lights, the lawyer laid out the marriage documents. The pen felt heavier than before. Her voice cracked. I don't even know your name. You don't need it right now. She felt tears burning in her eyes. Why are you doing this to me? He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her like a cloak. If you're married to me, they can't touch you. Who? She whispered. He didn't blink. The man your family originally promised you to. Her knees almost buckled. Promised. Yes. His jaw tightened. And he's someone you should fear far more than you fear me. She pressed the pen to the paper, breath hitching, and signed again, sealing her fate with a man who terrified her, yet somehow felt like the only shield she had left. When they returned to the car, he closed the door behind her and leaned in just enough for his words to sink into her bones. Don't be afraid of me, he murmured. If you must be afraid of the ones looking for you. She turned towards him, voice barely a whisper. Who's looking for me? A slow exhale left his lips, misting in the winter air. The people I stole you from. The car pulled away, and for the first time she truly felt the weight of the danger closing in around her. The car rolled to a silent stop in front of a stone courthouse tucked between old brick buildings. Christmas lights dangled across the roof, but they flickered weakly, more like a warning than a celebration. She stepped out slowly, boots crunching on the thin sheet of snow, her breath forming pale clouds in the frozen air. Inside the courthouse, everything was dim. The heating barely worked, making the room feel more like a morgue than a wedding hall. Two men stood near the judge's desk, tall, rigid, their faces unreadable. Their coats were too heavy, too tactical, and the faint symbol tattooed behind one man's ear made her stomach knot. These were not regular witnesses. She whispered, "Why are they here?" The man beside her didn't answer. His silence was a blade-sharp, clean final. The lawyer rushed forward with trembling hands. "Everything is ready, sir. We can begin immediately." The man nodded once. She stood awkwardly in the center of the room, wrapped in the same coat she'd worn when her family delivered her like a parcel. No flowers, no music, no vows, nothing that resembled a wedding. Just cold walls and four strangers. A pen was placed in her hand again. "This couldn't wait until morning," she asked, voice brittle. The man finally looked at her. "Morning is too late." "For what?" "To keep you breathing." Her grip tightened around the pen as the lawyer pointed to the signature line. Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them away, forcing her hand to move. Her signature appeared shaky and uneven, but once the ink dried, the lawyer let out a breath he'd been holding, as if the document itself was a shield. Then the man stepped forward. He signed his name in one swift, decisive stroke. No hesitation. No ceremony. The sound of the pen scratching paper felt heavier than a church bell. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Congratulations. You are legally married." The witnesses exchanged a look, one she couldn't decipher. Respect, fear, she wasn't sure. She stared down at the document, struggling to process that she was now someone's wife. A stranger's wife. A man who'd spent more time threatening her than reassuring her. A man who claimed she wouldn't survive the night without him. They stepped outside into the freezing air, and the wind felt sharper than before. She hugged the coat tighter around her body as they walked toward the car. The courthouse's dim lights flickered once more, as if signaling the world she had just crossed a threshold she couldn't return from. When they reached the car door, one of the witnesses leaned close enough for her to hear his whisper. "You're lucky," he murmured. "Not many get protected by him." She froze. Protected. But he was already stepping away. Her heart thudded. Protected from what? And why was everyone so afraid of this man standing beside her? Once inside the car, they drove through the silent city. Most houses glowed with warm Christmas lights. Families gathered around trees. Children laughed. The normalcy made her chest ache. She watched the man beside her, searching his face for answers. His expression didn't move, didn't soften, didn't crack. He stared straight ahead, jaw clenched as if fighting some internal war she couldn't understand. At last she found her voice. Who were those men? The witnesses? He didn't turn his head. People who owe me favors. Favors, she swallowed. Why did they look like soldiers? Because they fought for their lives before. His tone dropped lower. The man your family promised you to uses men like them. Her pulse spiked. Why did you have to marry me? Why not just hide me somewhere? His eyes finally met hers, sharp and cold. Because marriage makes you legally mine, and that gives me the right to intervene if he tries to take you. She pressed against the door, shaken. Why me? Why does he want me so badly? I've never met him. You don't need to meet a monster for him to choose you. His gaze darkened. He chooses people who won't be found. A chill ran down her spine so fiercely she couldn't breathe for a moment. And my family sold me to him. They gave him access, he said flatly. I arrived before he could finish the deal. The city grew sparser as the car traveled farther from the lights. Snow thickened, roads narrowed. She clutched her hands in her lap to stop them from shaking. The man's voice cut through the silence. Listen carefully. From this moment forward, you don't leave my side. Her breath trembled. Are you trying to scare me? No, he murmured. I'm trying to keep you alive. The car turned into a long tree-lined drive leading to high iron gates. Cameras tracked their approach. Guards stepped out from the shadows as if melting from the night itself. Her fear sharpened. This is your home. It's a safe house, he corrected. Not a home. The gates opened, metal groaning. The car rolled forward into the sprawling estate, cold towering, designed not for living but for defense. He stepped out first, scanning the area with a precision that didn't belong to a normal millionaire. Every movement was trained, controlled, lethal. He opened her door and held out a hand. She didn't take it. He didn't insist. He simply said, "Get inside." When she didn't move, he leaned closer, his voice a quiet storm. You asked me why I married you. Snow fell softly on his shoulders as he spoke the next words. Because if he had married you tonight, you'd already be dead. Her knees nearly buckled, the man's straightened eyes glinting in the cold. And if he finds out I took you first, he will try to finish what he started. The front door opened with a soft hiss, warm air spilling into the night. He gestured for her to walk. Welcome, he said quietly, to the only place you're still safe. The door closed behind her with a heavy echoing thud. She stood frozen in the marble foyer, staring up at the vast chandelier that cast fractured light across the walls. Everything in the mansion was polished, elegant, and absolutely lifeless. It looked less like a home and more like a fortress disguised as luxury. She followed him down the main hall, her steps soft compared to the steady, silent rhythm of his. Their shadows stretched long along the gleaming floor. Every few meters, small red sensors blinked from the walls. Cameras moved with eerie precision, tracking their every movement. Why do you need so much security? She whispered. He didn't look back. Because people are always watching. A shiver trailed down her spine. They entered a room lined with tall windows. Snow pressed against the glass like pale hands. A fireplace flickered weakly, but it didn't warm the room. Nothing did. He finally turned to her. Sit. She hesitated but obeyed, lowering herself onto the edge of a leather sofa. He set a steaming mug of cocoa in front of her, a strangely gentle act she didn't know how to process. What is this place? She asked. A temporary refuge. That sounds like you're preparing for war. He met her gaze with unsettling calm. I am. The room fell silent. Then he said the words she didn't want to hear. There are rules you need to follow. Her breath quickened. Rules, 3 of them. And you don't get to break any. She clenched her jaw. You said you married me to keep me alive, not to imprison me. He leaned forward slightly, and even the air in the room stirred at the weight of his voice. If I wanted to imprison you, you wouldn't be sitting on a sofa right now. Her heart pounded. He raised one finger. First rule, you do not leave the mansion, not alone, not with anyone, not even for a few steps beyond the gate. I'm not. It doesn't matter what you think you are, he cut in. He has eyes in places you don't even know exist. The way he said he made her blood run cold. She swallowed. If I stay inside, he won't find me. No, he said, but it makes it harder for him to take you. That wasn't comforting. He lifted a second finger. Rule 2, you don't answer your phone. Not calls, not messages, not anything from friends or family. Why not? Because you don't know which of them he's already bought. Her stomach twisted. My family wouldn't. They sold you, he said flatly. Don't pretend loyalty works both ways. She bit her lip hard enough to taste blood. He held up the third finger. And the last rule, you never go into the West Wing. She blinked. Why? His eyes hardened. Because there are things in there you shouldn't see. That's not an answer. Good, he replied. You're learning. Anger flickered in her chest. You think you can control everything I do? No, he said. I think I can keep you breathing. There's a difference. She pushed up from the sofa, pacing. This is insane. You expect me to act like a prisoner, to stay in a place I don't know with a man. I don't know. You think I want you here? His voice snapped sharper than she'd ever heard it. You think this is fun for me? She stopped mid-step. His jaw flexed as he turned away and rubbed the bridge of his nose like he was fighting a headache. If you'd seen what he does to the women he takes, you'd understand why I don't care if you hate me. Her breath caught. She didn't want to ask, but the question slipped out anyway. What does he do to them? He didn't answer. That silence was worse than anything he could have said. A soft chime echoed from the hallway. He straightened immediately, every muscle tensing. Without a word, he walked out of the room. She followed at a distance, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. He stopped in front of a control panel glowing red. Someone tried to hack the security feed. Her stomach dropped. Who? He pressed a sequence of buttons and studied the distorted footage. Someone inside the house opened the West Wing door. She froze. I thought you said no one goes in there. I said no one should, he replied darkly. But someone did. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Check the perimeter, check the guards, someone's testing our response time. Her pulse pounded in her ears. He ended the call and turned back to her. His expression was unreadable, but something new flickered behind his eyes, fear, anger, a mix of both. Listen to me, he said, voice low and unyielding. You are not safe here. You're not safe anywhere except next to me. That sounds like a trap. It is, he said quietly, but it's the only trap that keeps you alive. She didn't know what to say. He stepped closer until she could feel the warmth of his breath in the cold hallway. You think I'm the danger, and maybe I am, but the ones coming after you, they are monsters, and you are not prepared for what they want. She took a shaky step back, her hand brushing the wall. He didn't move, just watched her with a gaze that felt like a warning and a promise tangled together. Then he said the final words that would echo in her mind long after she tried to sleep that night. You're alive, because he doesn't know where you are. If you break any of my rules, he will. She woke to a room filled with pale winter lights, soft and cold like untouched snow. The mansion was silent, eerily so. No footsteps from staff, no distant voices, no sound of him. Only the faint hum of the heating system and the bitter memory of his 3 rules from the night before. A mug of cocoa sat on her bedside table, steam curling upward. He must have left it earlier that morning. The gesture unsettled her more than it comforted her. The man who spoke in threats and commands had quietly brought her something warm, something almost gentle. She wrapped her hands around the cup, letting its warmth seep into her trembling fingers. When she finally stepped into the hallway, she found him standing near the staircase, hands in his pockets, gaze fixed on something far beyond the snowy windows. For a moment, he seemed almost human, lost in thought instead of calculating danger. He noticed her and straightened immediately. You should eat. I'm not hungry. That wasn't a suggestion. She exhaled sharply. Why do you keep talking to me like I'm some assignment? His jaw tightened. Because right now you're the most fragile thing in this house. Her heart skipped. She didn't know whether to feel insulted or terrified. He gestured for her to follow him. She hesitated but did. They walked down a corridor lined with doors she hadn't dared to open. He stopped before the dining room table and slid a small wooden box across the polished surface toward her. A ribbon dark red satin was tied neatly around it. Her breath hitched. What is this, a gift? A gift, she repeated softly. From my husband. A flicker almost like discomfort passed through his eyes. Open it. She untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Nothing. The box was completely empty. Her chest tightened with humiliation. Is this supposed to be funny, no? Then what is it? It isn't time for it to be filled. Her laugh cracked in the middle. So you give me an empty box on the morning after you practically ordered me into marriage. He didn't flinch. It's not empty. It's waiting. For what? For when it's safe. Her hands clenched. She pushed the box toward him, voice rising. I don't understand you. Every time you speak, it's a half-truth. Every time I ask something, you hide behind warnings and riddles. Why? Why can't you just tell me the truth? He stared at her for a long moment, his expression rigid but his eyes troubled. Because if you learn the truth too soon, you'll try to run, and if you run, he'll take you. The way he said he made her stomach twist with dread. She stepped back. You can't decide what I can handle. He stepped forward. I can decide how to keep you alive. Stop saying that, she cried. Stop talking like I'm already halfway to my grave. He didn't move. His silence was heavy enough to crush the air between them. Then she noticed something, a tear in the fabric near his wrist. A thin, fresh wound beneath it. You're hurt, she whispered. He pulled the sleeve down immediately, but she had already seen it. A clean cut, too sharp to be an accident. What happened? She asked. Nothing you need to worry about. Someone was here. Someone attacked you. It's handled. Her voice trembled. Handled how? He turned away, jaw clenched. I told you before. The world you come from doesn't have room for the things I deal with. She felt the weight of those words settle painfully inside her. So you expect me to just exist here, not knowing anything for now? Until when you're no longer hunted? Her pulse jumped. You keep saying that like it's an everyday thing. Why me? What does he want? His shoulders rose and fell with a slow, tense breath. Not what? Who? She didn't dare ask again. He walked toward the window, leaning one hand against the glass. Snow began falling harder, layering the world in white silence. Last night wasn't the end, he murmured. It was only a delay. She hugged herself. And the box. He glanced at it. You asked what belongs inside. Yes. He took a long time to answer. When he did, his voice was softer, colder, heavier. Everything he's taken from you. Everything I intend to give back. Her breath caught. And when will that happen? She asked quietly. When you're no longer a target. She stepped toward him, trembling. Who is he? He didn't answer. He didn't look at her. He simply turned away, heading for the door. I deserve to know, she whispered. He paused, his hand on the doorframe. He's the man you were supposed to marry last night. Her body went numb. Your family made a deal, he said without turning around. But I paid higher. I stole you from him with minutes to spare. The room spun. Her voice came out small. Why? Why would you do that? He finally looked back at her eyes, dark as a winter storm, full of a warning that struck all the way to her bones. Because the man who wanted you buys wives the same way he buys victims. He stepped out into the dim hallway. And I wasn't going to let you become either. The doorbell rang with a sharp, urgent buzz that didn't match the quiet of the mansion. She looked up from the kitchen counter, startled. The housekeeper stiffened instantly, spoon slipping from her fingers. Who is it? She asked. The housekeeper didn't answer. She just hurried toward the security panel, her face draining of color. The monitor lit up, and there they were, her parents and brother standing at the gate as if they hadn't sold her days ago. Her breath caught. Open the gate, she whispered. No, the housekeeper said, shaking her head. But it was too late. He had already seen them. He appeared suddenly beside the panel, silently, like a shadow forming out of air. Let them in, he said. Her heart squeezed painfully. She didn't know whether to run or collapse. Minutes later, her family entered the living room. They wore desperate expressions, but she could tell beneath the trembling lips and downcast eyes there was calculation. Her mother rushed toward her. Sweetheart, we came because we're worried. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? Her brother stepped forward. We didn't know what kind of man he was. We were scared for you. Her father placed a hand on his chest, pretending to be heartbroken. We made a mistake, darling. We shouldn't have. Stop, she whispered, stepping back. You didn't come here to apologize. Silence fell thick and guilty. Her father's facade cracked. Fine, we need more money. She stared at him, stunned. You already got $1 million. We didn't get all of it, he snapped. Her mother quickly interjected, voice syrupy and fake. We're drowning in bills, dear. You don't understand. Your marriage cost us relationships, reputation, and you owe us, her brother added, folding his arms. The words hit her like a slap. I owe you. You sold me. Her father slammed his palm against the table. Watch your tone. That contract barely covers our debt. If he doesn't pay the second installment, we lose everything. She shook her head, feeling like she was sinking. There is no second installment. Yes, there is, her mother insisted, pulling a folded paper from her purse. He agreed to it. He owes us, and if he doesn't pay, we'll tell everyone, her brother said. Tell them you were forced. Tell them he's dangerous. Tell them. A shadow fell over the room. He stood in the doorway. Her family froze as if the temperature had dropped 10 degrees. No one had heard him enter, but he was there silent, towering his presence, swallowing the room whole. He walked forward slowly, his steps measured. Is there a problem? Her father swallowed. We came to discuss the second payment. There is no second payment, he said calmly. Her father's forehead glistened. The agreement says the agreement was manipulated, he replied. And I do not pay extortionists twice. Her brother stepped forward, puffing his chest. You can't talk to us like that. We're her family. His gaze sharpened just enough to make the boy flinch. Family doesn't sell their daughter. The room suffocated under the weight of the sentence. Her father tried to recover his confidence. If you don't pay, he said, voice quivering, we'll tell the police, the press, everyone will know. He took one step closer and her father immediately stumbled backward. You won't tell anyone anything. Something shifted in his posture, not anger, not threat, but absolute certainty. He leaned in toward her father and whispered something too quiet for her to hear. Whatever it was, her father's face drained of all color. His hands shook. Sweat beaded his forehead. He took a trembling step back, then another. We should leave, her father stammered. Now. Her mother grabbed her purse with shaking hands. Her brother moved quickly, pale and silent for the first time. They nearly collided, trying to reach the door. She watched them go, confused and horrified. What did you say to him? She asked softly. He didn't look at her. Nothing you need to carry. That's not an answer. He finally turned, meeting her eyes with calm intensity. I reminded him who he really owes, and what happens when he tries to break that debt. She stepped toward him, tears burning. Don't involve yourself in my family's mess because of me. He cut her off, voice unexpectedly soft. I'm involving myself because they made you part of their mess. I'm cleaning it up. Emotion twisted painfully in her chest. He walked to the fireplace and tossed a paper into the flames. She caught only a glimpse before it curled into ash. Second payment agreed. Her breath hitched. Why? Why did you burn that? Because if it exists, he said, eyes locked on the fire, he'll learn your family came here. She tensed. The one you stole me from. He nodded. And if he finds out? He turned toward her, expression dark and grave. Then he'll know you're still alive. Her stomach dropped. And he'll come for you faster. She hugged her arms around her body, trying to steady her breathing. Are you saying my family put me in danger again just by showing up? Yes. What will happen now? He stepped close, lowering his voice to a whisper that crawled down her spine. Now, he said, we prepare for the next move. She swallowed. His no. His eyes hardened. Mine. She lay awake long after midnight, staring at the ceiling as the house creaked under the weight of winter. The west wing seemed to pulse in the dark, an invisible presence tugging at her thoughts. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the locked door, the red sensors, the way his expression hardened whenever he mentioned it. By morning, her nerves were raw. She stepped into the hallway and froze. Everything felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. The mansion usually hummed with distant footsteps or voices, but now it felt as though every living soul inside was holding its breath. She found one of the staff in the kitchen, but the woman wouldn't meet her eyes. Where is he? She asked. The woman only murmured, gone for now, and hurried away. Alone again. Always alone in this enormous, suffocating place. Her phone buzzed suddenly. She jumped. A single message flashed across the screen from an unknown number. Don't trust him. He's keeping you for a bargain you don't understand. Leave while you still can. Her skin prickled. She deleted the message, instantly terrified he might see it, but the words clung to her mind like ice. She drifted through the halls until she reached the West Wing corridor. The door was closed, silence sealed behind its keypad. But something was different. A faint metallic beep echoed from the lock, followed by a flicker of red light. The door wasn't fully shut. Someone had opened it. Her pulse raced as she pushed the door lightly. It swung inward with a long, low hiss. A cold draft spilled out, smelling faintly of metal and paper. She stepped inside. The room wasn't a bedroom or storage room. It was a command center. Screens lined the walls, some frozen mid-frame from surveillance feeds. Tables were covered in open files and printed photos. A large map of the city hung across one wall, dotted with colored markers and handwritten notes. Then she saw it. A board filled entirely with photos of her. Her working at the cafe. Her walking home in the dark. Her sitting alone in a library. Her staring out a bus window. 6 months of her life captured from angles she never noticed. Her breath stuttered. She stepped closer, her knees weakening. Target identified. Pattern consistent. Risk level escalating. Guard route required. The handwriting was his. She moved to the next table. Documents, bank records, reports. Her family's debts. Names she didn't recognize. A contract signed by her father with a person listed only as V. Her eyes caught on the red binder in the corner. It was heavier, thicker, marked with a single warning, high threat target. She opened it. The first page held her name. The second page held photos of a man she recognized from the courthouse. The man she had almost married. The man he had stolen her from. Beneath his photo were words that made her stomach drop. Primary buyer. Trafficking division. Acquisition pending. She turned another page with trembling hands. There was a photo of her taken from a rooftop, another outside the grocery store, another standing alone at a bus stop at night. Then the line that tore through her family agreed to sell her payment pending. Her father's signature inked the bottom. A sob tore from her chest. Her own father had handed her to a monster. Not once, not by accident, but deliberately, officially, for money. She squeezed her eyes shut, but the images wouldn't stop burning behind them. The door slammed. She gasped and spun around. He stood in the doorway, breath-heavy snow still clinging to his coat. But his expression, sharp, haunted, wasn't anger. It was fear. "Why are you in here?" he asked, voice low and rough. "You followed me," she whispered. "For months. You watched me like a criminal. I watched you," he corrected, stepping closer so you wouldn't become one of his victims. She pointed at the photos with shaking hands. "You tracked everything I did. Everything. Because I had to know when he moved." Her voice cracked. "And my family. You knew what they did, yeah, and you didn't tell me." He closed his eyes briefly. "If I had told you, then you would have run. And if you had run, he would have taken you the same night." Her knees nearly gave out. "What does he want with me?" He didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice had softened to something painful. "He collects the quiet ones, the ones no one would notice missing." She staggered back as if struck. "So that's what I am, someone no one would look for." His jaw locked, not to me, but she could barely hear him past the ringing in her ears. "Why did you lie? Why didn't you just warn me? Because warning you wasn't enough. I had to get to you before he did." His eyes darkened. "I had to outbid him." She stared, horror creeping up her spine. "So you bought me too?" "No." His voice was steel. "I sold you." She swallowed hard. Why risk everything for me?" He stepped closer. "Because I knew what he'd do to you." She looked down at the red binder. "And now, what happens to me now?" He exhaled shakily, running a hand through his hair. "Now that you've seen all this, he'll know." Her heartbeat hammered. "Know what? That you understand his intent." Why would he know that? His gaze locked with hers? Because someone inside this house told him you entered this room. Cold rippled through her. "Someone?" "Here," he nodded once, jaw clenched. "There's a mole in the mansion, and now he knows exactly where you are." He didn't storm toward her or raise his voice. He simply closed the distance between them, one slow, deliberate step at a time, as if afraid any sudden movement might push her further into panic. Snow still clung to his coat, melting into dark spots on the floor. She stood with the red binder pressed against her chest like a shield. "You hid everything from me," she whispered. "You followed me, you tracked me, you knew they were going to sell me." He stopped a few feet from her. "I did. And you said nothing, because telling you wouldn't have stopped it." Her throat tightened. "You could have warned me. You could have given me a chance. You would have run," he said quietly, "and running would have killed you." She flinched at his certainty. You don't know that. I do, he answered, voice steady but not unkind. That man doesn't chase. He hunts. Once he chooses a target, he doesn't stop not until he owns it. The word owns made her stomach twist. She shook her head, anger and fear blurring together. You talk like you know him. I do. How, she demanded. Who is he to you? He exhaled, dragging a hand through his hair. A rival, a trafficker, a man who buys people the way others buy property. He uses marriages to make ownership look legal. Her blood ran cold. And my family. They agreed to sell me to him. Yes. His expression darkened. For enough money, people you trust can turn into monsters. Her knees weakened. She gripped the table to stay upright. So you stepped in, paid more, outbid him. No, he said sharply. I don't buy people. I bought leverage. Time. She looked up at him, tears burning. You still paid $1 million. To get you out, he replied. Not to keep you. Then why marry me? Because marriage gave me legal custody over your whereabouts. Without it, I couldn't interfere when he came for you. She pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. So, I'm trapped because of him. Not you. You're protected because of me, he corrected softly. She paced the room, overwhelmed. You should have told me the truth. Maybe I could have helped you. His voice cracked, not with anger, but something closer to pain. You have no idea what he does to people who fight back. She froze, watching shadows flicker across his face. Did he hurt someone you knew? She asked quietly. His jaw tightened. He's hurt many people I knew. Is that why you hate him? He shook his head once. I don't waste emotions on him, but I promised myself I'd never let him take another innocent person. And then, his gaze drifted to her. Then I found out he wanted you. Her heart stumbled. She swallowed painfully. Why me? I don't understand. I'm not special. You're invisible, he said softly. Quiet, alone, easy to take without raising alarms. Perfect for a man like him. She looked down, shame washing over her. I didn't know being insignificant could get me killed. He stepped closer, his voice suddenly sharp. You're not insignificant? She blinked at the force behind the words. He looked away as if he'd revealed too much. He chose you because he thought no one would come for you, because he thought you were unloved, unprotected, unseen, and you proved him wrong, she whispered. I had to, he said, because the longer I watched you, the harder it became to pretend you were just a target. Her breath caught. A moment passed, charged, fragile. Then she asked the question that had been slicing through her thoughts since she opened the binder. Why did you follow me for 6 months? He didn't move. But something in his eyes softened like ice thawing just enough to reveal the river beneath. Because I needed to know exactly when he would make his move. Because I needed to know your routines, your vulnerabilities, your risks. His voice dropped. Because if I didn't understand everything about your life, I wouldn't be able to save you. She stared at him, the truth crashing into her like a tidal wave. You saved me. He didn't deny it. And now she asked, voice barely a whisper. What happens now that I know everything? His expression hardened again. Now it becomes more dangerous. Because I know too much. Because he knows you know. Her pulse spiked. How could he possibly know already? He took the binder gently from her hands and placed it on the table. Because the moment you entered this room, someone inside this mansion alerted him. Her stomach dropped. A traitor. He nodded once. A mole. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly freezing. Who would betray you like that? It doesn't matter who, he said. What matters is what he does next. But he stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low, urgent murmur. He knows exactly where you are. Her breath caught. And he's coming, he added, tonight. The world seemed to tilt. She whispered, What do we do? He looked at her, truly. Looked at her with a gaze that held both fury and fear for her, not of anything else. We prepare, he said. For what? He didn't hesitate. For war. Snow fell in a heavy, relentless curtain as night settled over the mansion. She stood by the bedroom window staring out at the dark tree line. Something about the stillness felt wrong, too deep, too heavy, like the world was waiting to exhale. The air hummed with tension, and even the lights in the hall flickered as if anticipating what was coming. Downstairs, doors slammed. Footsteps hushed and commands echoed. He appeared in her doorway moments later, eyes sharp, voice urgent. Stay here. No matter what you hear, don't step outside this room. Her breath hitched. What's happening? Nothing good. He started to pull the door closed. Lock it. But the last look he gave her, half warning, half fear, cut straight through her chest. Minutes crawled past in suffocating silence until the first alarm blared. Red lights flashed across the corridor. Then the power cut. Her heart leapt into her throat. She stumbled back as emergency lights flickered weakly on, casting the room in dim red shadows. A thud echoed somewhere in the house, followed by the unmistakable crash of breaking glass. She ran to the door and pressed her ear against it. Footsteps. Heavy ones. Too many. A muffled shout, a grunt of pain, the sound of a struggle. No, she whispered, gripping the doorknob as if to anchor herself. Another crash, then a scream short cut off abruptly. Her stomach twisted. Her instincts screamed at her to run, hide, move, but her fear kept her rooted in place. A quiet click sounded behind her. She spun around just in time to see the window latch tremble. Someone was trying to force it open. Before she could react, the door exploded inward. A masked man stormed in, grabbing her by the wrist so hard that she cried out. He yanked her toward the hallway. Let go, she screamed. He shoved her forward. Move, now. He dragged her into the corridor where smoke and shadows blurred the air. A second man approached, holding a knife glinting in the emergency light. She's bait, he growled. The boss wants him out. Her chest tightened. They weren't here to kill her, not yet. They were here to draw him out. Don't do this, she whispered, voice cracking. He'll kill you. The man laughed darkly. Not before we take her. A sharp whistle sliced through the chaos. Both men spun sharply. He stood at the opposite end of the hall, shrouded in broken light. No weapon, no backup, just a cold, quiet fury radiating off him like heat from a furnace. Let her go, he said. The grip on her wrist tightened. Take one more step, the masked man hissed, and she bleeds. The knife pressed to her side. She gasped. He lifted his hands slowly, palms open. I'm right here. Don't touch her. Everything in him looked coiled, controlled, like he was holding back something lethal. The second masked man chuckled. If you want her alive, you come with us. She shook her head desperately. Don't listen to them. He didn't even glance at her. His voice dropped to a chilling softness. Fine. Take me. Just let her go. Her breath shattered. No, she cried. No, you can't. But he stepped closer, hands still raised. The men exchanged a satisfied glance. Good. Now he moved. It was a blur, a flash of motion so fast her eyes barely registered it. He slammed his shoulder into the man holding her, knocking the knife away. Pain shot up her arm as she stumbled backward, free for an instant. Gunfire exploded. He grabbed her, pulling her behind him as a bullet tore through his shoulder. He grunted but didn't falter. He shoved her into a side alcove and turned back into the fight. Run, he barked. I won't leave you, go, he roared. But she stayed frozen, watching as he fought off two men with brutal efficiency, striking, dodging, blocking. Blood spread across his shirt, but he kept moving, kept fighting like she was the only thing anchoring him to life. Then more footsteps thundered into the hallway. 3 additional attackers appeared, weapons drawn. He staggered, eyes narrowing. He couldn't win this. Not like this. Then she realized the awful truth. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to buy her time. No, she screamed, rushing toward him as the men advanced. A hand clamped around her from behind. She thrashed, kicking and clawing, but the grip was iron. The attacker dragged her back, forcing her to watch. The leader stepped forward, removing his mask with calm confidence. She froze. It was him, the man from the courthouse, the man she never married because she had been sold to someone else instead. His smile was smooth and cruel. You cost me quite a bit, sweetheart. Her blood turned to ice. He shifted his gaze to the man shielding her with his body. And you paying $1 million just to steal her from me? That was bold. He wiped a speck of dust from his coat. But I paid more. And our deal, his eyes gleamed with possession, isn't finished. The man holding her released a ragged breath, pulling himself upright despite the blood soaking his arm. You'll never touch her, he said. The other man smiled like a serpent. We'll see. The hall crackled with tension. Snow whirled through shattered windows. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed a faint, hopeful sound. But inside the mansion, time stood still, and the war he had warned her about had officially begun. He woke to the sterile brightness of the mansion's medical room, the quiet hum of machines and the faint sting of antiseptic. His shoulder throbbed beneath thick bandages, but the first thing he saw wasn't the pain. It was her. She sat beside him in a pale armchair, knees pulled to her chest, hair tangled from hours of fear and no sleep. Her eyes were red but awake, watching him like she'd been terrified to blink. "You're alive," she breathed. He blinked slowly, trying to gather himself. "Of course I am." She let out a trembling laugh that sounded half-broken. "You say that like you didn't take a bullet for me." He shifted, wincing. "It was a graze." "It wasn't," she whispered. Silence fell between them, the kind that's heavy with all the things neither dared to say. He finally pushed himself up slightly. "Are you hurt?" "No," she said, "but I thought I lost you." His gaze softened in a way she'd never seen. "You won't lose me." Her eyes flicked to the IV drip beside him, then back to his face. "You almost did. Because of me." He shook his head. "Because of him." She swallowed hard, voice barely steady. "They took you down on purpose. You sacrificed yourself so they wouldn't kill me." "That wasn't a sacrifice," he murmured. "It was the only option." Her hands trembled. Why? He didn't answer. Not immediately. Instead, he looked away as if the truth was too dangerous to exist in daylight. A soft knock interrupted them. The door opened, revealing 2 members of his private security team. They bowed their heads slightly. "It's done," one said. "He's been arrested. The entire trafficking ring. They won't get near her again." Relief washed over her so fast she nearly collapsed. He only nodded. "Good." When they left, she whispered, "So, it's over." He looked at her with something like sorrow. "For you, yes." Something in his voice frightened her. "What does that mean?" Instead of answering, he turned and reached for a stack of documents on the bedside table. "These papers dissolve the marriage. The contract, the custody rights, everything reverts back to you. You're free." The room tilted. She stared at the documents as if they were a weapon. "Free, you deserve a life without any of this," he said quietly. "Without danger, without me." Her heart plummeted. "You're pushing me away. I'm letting you go." The words cut deeper than any blade. She stepped back from the bed, tears blurring her vision. "Do you really think I feel safer without you?" "You should," he said, "but I don't." He looked up sharply. "I don't feel safe in a world where you're not in it," she whispered. His jaw tightened. "You're saying that because you're scared." "No," she breathed. "I'm saying it because I finally understand. You didn't trap me. You saved me. You didn't buy me. You protected me. You didn't own me. You kept me alive even when I didn't know I was in danger." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the small wooden box he had given her, the box he claimed was waiting. He stared at it, speechless. She opened it gently. Inside lay a folded piece of paper. He inhaled sharply. "What did you put in there?" She placed the open box in his hands. On the paper were 3 handwritten words, "I choose you." His fingers tightened around the edges of the box. "You filled it," he murmured, voice cracking. "With the only thing that matters," she whispered. "My choice." He shook his head once, as if fighting a battle inside himself. "I'm not good for you. You saved my life," she said, "and I want the rest of it with you." Finally, slowly, he reached out and touched her cheek, his hand trembling with emotion he'd buried for far too long. She leaned into his touch, eyes closing. "You're sure?" he asked, voice raw. "I've never been more sure." He exhaled a breath like he'd been drowning for months and only now surfaced. He pulled her into his arms gently, carefully because of his wound, but tightly enough that she felt every ounce of what he'd tried so hard to hide. When he spoke, his voice was warm against her hair. "Then stay." She held on to him, tears finally falling, not from fear, but relief. "I'm not going anywhere." Later, when she guided him outside to the balcony, snow drifted lazily down from the night sky. He wrapped an arm around her waist, drawing her close. "We'll start over," he said softly. "Not because of a contract, because you stayed." And because you chose me first, she whispered. He smiled, small, rare, real. Snow fell, light glowed from the windows. For the first time since the nightmare began, she felt the warmth of Christmas and the safety of a future she never thought she'd have, together. If you reach this moment with them, thank you for staying through every breath, every fear, every heartbeat of their story. If you believe that some people enter our lives to protect us long before we understand why, leave A in the comments. And if you want more stories full of danger, love, healing, and the fight to choose your own destiny, make sure to follow the channel, subscribe, and stay with us for the next journey. Your presence here means more than you know.